Hello again, everybody. My name is Greg Oldenburg, and welcome back to the Jungle Show, where we discuss all things Auburn men's basketball 52 weeks out of the year. We go live here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch on all the Auburn Daily channels at 6 p.m. Central Time. On today's episode, we'll discuss Walker Kessler and his entire Auburn career, some of the great games that he had and great performances, all the stuff that he went through in his time here at Auburn, and a preview look and some locations for to look at or to be aware of for his NBA draft day. We'll also chat about the new Auburn transfer big man from Morehead State, Johni Broome, and all other things in and around the Auburn basketball program. All that and more next. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jungle Show for episode 3. This is the third week that we've been doing this. It gets better and better every single time. Will continue to believe. On today's episode, just like I said in the intro, we will talk a lot about Walker Kessler, preview the NBA draft for him, talk about some of his performances throughout the year at Auburn. And then we'll talk about a few things going around in the program. One, a new transfer big man from Morehead State, Johni Broome, a super, super big pickup for Bruce and his staff for this next year's team, and talk about how he can be that replacement for Walker Kessler. We're also going to talk about some Auburn targets that Auburn is in the running for that they should commit next week. We don't know about that, but we'll discuss that here in a second. And we will go through my article written on auburndaily.com that is for the 5 best locations suited for Walker Kessler in the NBA draft. And to do that, to discuss it all, I brought in my dad and co-host, Chris. How are you?
It hurts for you to say Chris, doesn't it?
It just is a little odd.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I missed last week, and I apologize for leaving you hanging. But I had some work things that I had to take care of, and thought you did a good job talking about how awesome Jabari was and how awesome Jabari is going to be as he moves forward. So, but it's good to be back. Good to be able to sit down and talk about Auburn basketball once again.
I agree. And just like you said, you were here last week where we talked all things Jabari Smith. We discussed my article on auburndaily.com about 5 best locations suited for Jabari Smith. Last week's episode, you can go watch the replay, comment on that. Let me know what you thought. It was just me on that episode. But on this episode is all about the guy Walker Kessler. Before we get into talking about Walker and talking about what we got planned for today and maybe the future of the show as weeks to come, let's talk about the big news of the week that everybody's been talking about. Of course, let's talk about the new Auburn transfer big man, Johni Broome from Morehead State. Auburn played against this guy in the first game last year. I think Walker got the better end of him in that game in Auburn Arena. But he had 12 points and 8 rebounds against Auburn. But Johni Broome, just like I said, from Morehead State, one of the top mid-major players this year, and entered the transfer portal, and it was all – I think it was all Auburn. He only took one other visit. It was to Florida. But from what it sounds like, it was all Auburn from this guy from the beginning and on to his transfer portal announcement to his commitment. Broome averaged 16.8 points a game last year for Morehead State, along with 10.5 rebounds and 3.9 blocks on the season, which ranks 3rd in the country, only behind another guy and Walker Kessler at number 1. So
yeah, let's
true talent coming in here.
Let's be real happy about this. This is a kid from Florida who grew up rooting for Florida, ended up going to Morehead State. Went into the transfer portal, and one of Bruce's proteges is now the head coach at Florida.
That's right.
And Bruce could not lose this one to him. He needed to win this one. It helps that their center, who I don't really like that much, Mr. Castleton, is coming back.
Yep.
And so I heard, I don't know if it was Ferguson or one of the guys talking about, they had heard that Florida was trying to sell him on playing Broome and Castleton at the same time, kind of a Twin Towers deal. But I think Broome liked the idea of coming to Auburn, what we did with Walker Kessler, and the idea of blocking shots, and for what it's worth, his back to the basket game is much more sophisticated than Walker Kessler's one.
Absolutely,
much more. Watch him play. Watch the game against Murray State in the OVC championship. He had like 32.
He had 32 points.
He was their whole offense.
I agree. Just like you said just a second ago, he's inside, particularly the post game, his face-up game, and his back to the basket game is so much more refined than Walker was, especially at this time before the season. Broome is third, or last year was third in the country in 2-point field goals made, with 224 made 2-point field goals. That shows that ability to be able to score get the ball down to the big guy and let him score. Look, he's 6'10". He's not as tall as Walker. He's not as long as Walker.
No,
but he's not as, I don't think he's as much of an NBA guy as Walker was.
Not yet.
But his offensive game is much more, just like you said, sophisticated, refined. It's there. Walker,
we've been talking all this past year about I wish Walker would develop a hook shot.
Mm-hmm.
There are several times that he turned through the lane, and had he been able to throw a hook shot up there, and he got better. But had he been able to consistently make a hook shot, it would have improved his game a bunch.
No doubt.
And Johni adds something, and I think he adds this along with Traore, is when we get in a situation where teams are just not worried about our outside shooters,
mm-hmm.
He can be down low and get a bucket.
Yeah.
And pull some more people down off of our shooters to give them more open looks.
That's right.
I think that some teams thought that they could single team Walker Kessler. I think you're going to have to double Johni on the post, and probably Traore on the post, although Traore's more of a spot up guy too.
Yeah.
So, but Johni has the hook. He's got the up and under. He's got the drop step. He's got a little fadeaway with his kicking his leg out, like the old Dirk Nowitzki move.
That's right.
That is really pretty, and he's passionate. So he'll be fun to watch. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited. It's a huge pickup, just like you said earlier. It's for beating out Todd Golden at Florida now. Being able to win this battle, get this kind of mid-major transfer, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And we talk about what he can bring and provide when we are losing a guy like Walker Kessler. It's exactly on the defensive end. We're talking about an offensive game. We don't think Walker's game was as good as Johni's was at this point. But Johni's defensive game, no, he's not as long. No, he's not as tall as Walker was. But averaged 3.9 blocks a game. I mean, in terms of like block percentage, he blocked over 13% of opponents' 2-point field goals. The only guy better than that this year was Walker.
Yeah.
So talk about going and getting the right guy to replace a defensive menace like Kessler.
We lost the jigsaw piece, and we replaced the jigsaw piece almost exactly the way it was supposed to be. He's better on the offensive end. He's not quite as good at blocking shots as Walker, obviously. Like you said, he's not as long, not as tall. His timing is really good if you watch him play. And that was what was always, to me, amazing about Walker Kessler is the dude, his timing was just fantastic. And if he'll be the second guy to jump, not the first guy. If he'll be the second guy to jump, he can still block a lot of shots.
Absolutely.
And he'll be fun to watch. And people will love him. We love Walker Kessler, but he'll be fun to watch.
I 100% agree. And look, huge pickup for Bruce.
Yeah.
Huge pickup.
Needed.
So now you're in a situation with this team next year. Okay, what does your roster look like? All right, you've built this front court back up with Traore and Broome. How far away do you want to build that? You have one more scholarship spot up because you've lost. The only guys you've lost are Jabari, Walker, and Devin Cambridge. Cambridge to the portal, and Walker and Kessler, or Walker and Jabari to the draft.
Right.
You've filled two of those with Traore and Johni Broome. But I mean, that's considering the guys that are coming in, like Donaldson, Westery, and those two guys. So you have one scholarship spot left. You are in the running for a guy named Julian Phillips, who decommitted 5-star, decommitted to LSU when the whole Will Wade explosion happened at LSU, and that's how we got Yohan Traore. Thanks, Will Wade.
I may change that from explosion to implosion.
Implosion. No, I agree. I like that better. But a super talented, really long, about 6'8", forward, uberly athletic, and can shoot, is unbelievable talent, power forward, 5-star. He would be the second highest ranked recruit ever if he were to commit to Auburn. He commits on May 12th, this coming Thursday, so we will know by next week's show if he is ours or if he is somewhere else. His top 7 is kind of an odd top 7, to be honest, but Auburn, Florida State, South Carolina, Southern Cal, the Overtime Elite program, the G League Ignite team, and Tennessee.
I from everything that I've heard, and I don't follow it as close as some of the guys on Twitter, Orange and Drew, he follows it really close. But everything I've heard is us or Tennessee.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard also, it's leaned more towards Tennessee recently. So hopefully Bruce can get in and get an in-home visit with him before, if he hadn't already, before he commits. Julian would be a great fit. He fits that small forward, power forward. He can play either the 3 or the 4. Probably could play the 2, to be honest with you. He's more of a slasher. He's not your 3-point sharpshooter. And a lot of people on Twitter have talked about how badly we need to get a 3-point sharpshooter. That's not his game. He can shoot it. But he's much more of a get the ball in the wing, pump fake, jab step, and go. And he plays above the rim, and he's nasty.
Absolutely.
And boy, he'd be fun. I'd really like to get him. If we don't get him, it's okay. We still have an opportunity to get into the portal and get that sharpshooter. And maybe that works out better anyway. I know that Traore has been on him, trying to get him to come to Auburn with him, like they were going to LSU together.
Yeah.
So hopefully Julian will see the light and come to the good school.
I agree. You can't have him going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But that is all the stuff that we're going to talk about in and around the program right now. Let's talk about who we're here to talk about in this episode. And that's the big fella, Walker Kessler.
Big fella.
7'1", who was a true sophomore this year, from Georgia, originally from Noonan, Georgia, went to North Carolina, was probably the 4th string center on that North Carolina team.
They had a bunch of bigs.
Brooks, behind Day'Ron Sharp, behind Armando Bacot.
Yeah.
A bunch of bigs on that team. So he never really saw action. He had one game in the ACC tournament against Notre Dame where he went for like 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 blocks. And it was like, okay, where has that been all year? If you're in North Carolina, where has that been? And then immediately entered the transfer portal, I believe, right when Coach Roy Williams decided to retire, and hit the transfer portal and it was all Auburn from there. The only visit he took was Auburn, and that's exactly where he went. Committed to Auburn soon after, but let let's talk about. I knew when he committed the kind of impact that he was going to have walking on campus,
Mm-hmm.
especially defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So after losing a guy like JT Thor the year before, you lose JT Thor, who played center most of the year for you. And the only other center on the roster on that 2021 team was Dylan Cardwell.
Mm-hmm.
And Dylan, I don't know if we really wanted Dylan. We were going after a big no matter what. And to get the best big in the portal last year in Kessler, that was, again, huge for Bruce. And just like this one with Broome is huge. Let's talk about some of his games this year at Auburn, particularly. Look, he
Hang on,
led us. Yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
say something real quick about what you were talking about. As a guy who's a Carolina fan, growing up, when Walker was coming out of high school, and we thought we may have a chance at him at Auburn. In fact, I thought we led for him, and I thought it was between us and Georgia, where his uncle and his dad played basketball.
Yeah,
I watched a little bit of his film out of high school and was like, man, he's good.
yeah,
And wow, can you imagine bringing him and Jabari in here, or him and Thor?
Sharif.
He would have played with Thor and
Sharif.
Sharif is
Yeah.
who I was thinking about, and how Sharif could get in the ball. And he went on kind of a surprise visit to North Carolina and got there and committed while he was on site. And I was like, God, I hate that for Auburn. At least I can still root for him as a Carolina fan.
Yeah.
But like you said, it wasn't going to play. I'm a little surprised that he went there in the first place, because if you look at the roster, you knew you weren't playing behind Mondo or Garrison.
Yeah.
I guess he thought he could fight with Day'Ron Sharp for minutes.
Yeah.
And he really didn't do a lot. And then, like you said, he had that one game in the tournament with 8 block shots and 16 points. And we were like, wow, that's really good. Maybe he is going to, maybe some of those guys turn pro like Sharp did. And Garrison moved on to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
But when he went into the portal, I think it was that relationship had already been built.
Yeah.
Stephen and Bruce both had built a relationship with him in high school, and it was an obvious fit. And it was a perfect fit in our system. So go ahead with the games. We can talk about those.
Of course. Yeah. No, we're just going to talk about some of Walker's performances this past year. Look, if you want to talk about unbelievable performances, he had 2 triple doubles, both in SEC play against Texas A&M and against LSU, both home games. Yeah. Walker Kessler had triple doubles with points, rebounds, and blocks, where Walker averaged this year 11.4 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 4.6 blocks per game. 4.6 led the entire country.
Yep.
And he won National Defensive Player of the Year and SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And it was the amount of times where he won Defensive Player of the Week, and he got like second team All-American type of honors. And to only average 11 points and to get those type of honors shows what kind of impact he had on the defensive end. And that's exactly what teams are going to look for in this year's draft. But Walker, he led us in rebounds, led Auburn in rebounds 17 out of the 34 games. 15 of those were Jabari. 15 of the other ones were Jabari. 17 were Walker. The only other 2 were Wendell led us in rebounds one game. What in the world? And Devin led us in rebounds.
Devin in the Missouri game. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
The game that so you always kind of knew what Walker could do, but when we went to St. Louis and we're behind, and Coach Pearl and all of his infinite wisdom said, I don't think St. Louis can guard the high screen and roll. Let's run that a couple times. And we ran it and ran it and ran it and ran it, and it worked almost every time for lobs for Kessler.
Yeah.
The other game, non-conference stuff. The other game that I look back on is the when Syracuse tried to play zone against our 2 bigs, and we run one to the free throw line, which is how you beat Syracuse zone, is a really good player at the free throw line. And he would throw lobs to Kessler. Yeah. And Kessler was dominant in those games. And that's when those two games I went, man, if we can get that during the season, during the conference season, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And we opened up against LSU at home, and he throws a triple-double up. Yeah. And it was like, wow, the only other time I remember seeing something like that was Kenny Gabriel.
Yeah.
And to do it with points, rebounds, and block shots, 10 block shots in a game is really difficult.
Oh,
yeah. But the thing about Walker was his timing was unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's natural. Yeah. It's not something you teach. You teach him to stay on his feet until the guy jumps, be the second jumper. And when he was the second jumper, he was blocking shots or affecting shots. We don't even have stats for the amount of shots he changed.
Yeah.
But they're in the hundreds.
All
the time.
Absolutely.
People were terrified to go in against him.
No doubt. And it really showed defensively. And not only does that affect when he's on the floor, does that affect shots that he not necessarily blocked, but that also allows, you had two of the best on-ball defender guards I've ever seen to play at Auburn. On your team this year, Katie Johnson and Zep Jasper. It allowed those two and Wendell and sometimes Devin and Allen to, jump the passing lane.
A lot more aggressive.
Be more aggressive defensively on the ball and off the ball, knowing that you have an absolute eraser behind you. Absolute tree back there.
And I think they're going to be happy that Johni is back there now, too, because he's similar to that. He can come from the help side and block shots on the other side of the rim like Walker was so good at. But you're right. Allowing your guards to know, okay, if my guy beats me back door, that's okay because I got Walker standing back there.
That's right.
Because now I can guard you tighter. And our defense was light years better than it was the year before. And we had better players. But a lot of it was you can be as aggressive as you want.
Yeah.
You just go get the ball because this dude back here, he's gonna if he's not gonna block it, he's gonna change it.
That's right. That is exactly right. And you had it right on the column there. So we'll lead into kind of what teams, what franchises, what they need to be expecting from drafting a guy like Walker Kessler. And I think, we'll go through the article that I wrote on auburndaily.com here in just a second, but I want to preface this. A lot of these teams that I listed and that we're going to talk about here is strictly based on what they need the most. And a lot of these teams on here don't have a true center contracted this year or contracted for next year, or they don't. They could be looking for another one, or they don't have as much of a defensive inside presence as you would think they would, or maybe they're running too much small ball. It all depends on it's all about what team falls in love with his situation the most, and that's where he's going to end up in the draft. He can go as early as early teens, maybe late lottery to late first round. It all depends on what the team falls in love with and what they need in particular. And that's exactly that's all it is. But so we'll go through the article here in just a second. And if you want to find the article, you can follow along, or you're watching the replay, you can watch it. I'm going to tweet the article out right after the show ends. My Twitter handle's right there, at Gray Oldenburg, or you can go to auburndaily.com and look for the Walker Kessler 5 best locations for Walker Kessler.
I've also tweeted it. I've also tweeted it out and put it on Facebook before the show, and I'll do it again.
Awesome. So we'll go through the article right now. Look. Again, these are not in order. It's not based on, what I want. I think these are the teams that have the 5 most need for a guy like Walker Kessler in the draft, and could be around the time where it'd be reasonable to draft Walker Kessler. So the defensive presence that he offers, it is going to be unlike anybody else in the draft. There's nobody like Walker Kessler in the draft right now. Dikembe Mutombo is not in the draft this year. He's not in there. So Walker is that guy. Walker is that top guy. If you want a big defensive presence and maybe a raw offensive guy that you can use his body to develop his strengths, that's what you're going to get in Walker Kessler.
Yep.
So we'll go through the article right now. In the article, I noted about that he was a former 5-star out of Georgia, and what he averaged 11.4 points per game, 8.1 rebounds a game, and 4.6 blocks a game. He shot the ball just over 60% on the year. A lot of that is dunks. We can't say that he's
high screen and roll, high screen and roll, high screen and roll.
Yeah, that's right. He won SEC Defensive Player of the Year and National Defensive Player of the Year, and also he was awarded some second team All SEC honors. Man, that's a tongue twister right there. But most mock drafts have him, between the 14 and 26 range is about where it'd be reasonable for him to take. Which you could see a team, really late lottery, or you could see a team that's in the playoffs right now or just got out of the playoffs. This is Friday. Playoffs are going on right now. The second round is to upgrade their inside defensive presence. So we'll take a look at 5 teams. We'll kind of talk and discuss and go through the article. The 5 teams that I listed are the best locations and most reasonable locations for Walker Kessler to end up at the next level. Right. So the first team that I listed, again, these are not in order, are the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks right now are the current 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, trying to defend their NBA title from last year. They've had to deal with some weird injuries this year. When the season started, it was like, okay, the Bucks will be the 1 seed again. No, they weren't, because the Heat, exploded onto the scene. But Milwaukee, it's not like they stepped back. They had to overcome a lot of things. But they've had
their center got hurt. Brooks Lopez was hurt a lot of the year. And so you lose your center. You may be
Chris Middleton's hurt right now.
Now Middleton's hurt.
Yeah, it's been kind of a weird situation in Milwaukee this year.
I love the idea of pairing Kessler and Giannis together, because Giannis is big, but he's not a center.
Yeah.
And Lopez, I don't know if he may not be under contract next year. So I think Kessler would be a great fit in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a great fit in Milwaukee.
I agree.
Middleton as the shooter, with Holiday as your point guard, can get him the ball almost anywhere on lob situations. Be a great fit.
Yeah. So I noted here in the article, and one of the main reasons that I picked the Bucks, Milwaukee sits at 27 out of 30 team in the league right now in blocks per game, due to the fact that Brook Lopez being hurt most of the year. And so their only other defensive presence as a big is Giannis. Well, Giannis is being drawn out to the perimeter most of the time. And yes, he's a former, 2-time defensive player of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
He's not
MVP.
He's not getting 3 blocks a game. He's not doing that. He's just that length. And you talk about pairing those two together, Kessler and Giannis, talk about length as a front court. That would be absolutely
fun to watch.
Not only would that put that would leave Giannis away from having to do some of the center duties. You'd also be the guy that played center for most of them this year was Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis isn't a center either.
He's a power forward.
He move him back to his natural position, get Brook Lopez back healthy, draft Walker Kessler. I like that front court right there.
I like that fit. What's the next one?
Absolutely. The next one is, I mentioned just a second ago, the Miami Heat. Had their best season this year since 2014, when Bron and Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh were all there at the same time. They are the 1 seed right now in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Miami, another team just like Milwaukee, they are last in the NBA this year in blocks per game. And look, I think a lot of that is due to their only center on the roster right now is Bam Adebayo, and he's not.
It's not his game. Blocking shots, not
blocking
Bam
shots is
Adebayo's
not
game.
what he does. Even though he's
Nope.
6'10", 6'11", he's a scorer. He's an offensive threat, and so he's not going to block 2 or 3 shots a game. Outside of that, they don't have a big guy. I mean, their biggest guy outside of Adebayo is Udonis Haslem, and I think Haslem's like 45.
Hey, come on. Be nice to the older guy.
Just say
Haslem and Haslem also got in a fight with Jimmy Butler during a game.
Wouldn't do that.
No.
Jimmy Butler's not someone I would pick at.
I also like the fit here at Miami. He could learn some stuff from Bam Adebayo.
Exactly.
He can provide that defensive presence. He's still got the guard like Jimmy Butler who can get him the ball, and he can pull it, and he can be the same thing for them because Butler likes to defend. Let Butler be more aggressive on the defensive end and knowing he's got Walker Kessler. He can't do that now. Bam Adebayo is a great player. Out of Kentucky. That hurts me to say. But he's a great player who doesn't block shots. That's not what Bam Adebayo does.
Yeah. That's not his game.
No. What's next?
The next team I listed is the Portland Trailblazers. I think this is a very interesting one because when I say the Portland Trailblazers, I immediately think about him playing with Damian Lillard, and I love it. I absolutely love that. But one of the main reasons, I mean, look, the Trailblazers were 27th in the league in rebounding, and they were in the bottom half of the league in blocks per game. But they also have no centers contracted for next year.
Who's their center now? Who played center for him?
Yusuf Nurkic is their center now.
Okay.
He is not contracted for next year, and they want to re-sign him, but that is very unlikely because if they let Damian Lillard walk, I would let Yusuf Nurkic walk as well because
then you're rebuilding.
Then you implode and you draft the best player available in your draft pick but say they don't extend Yusuf Nurkic, I love the fit with Walker Kessler in Portland. It's playing with Gary Trent and Damian Lillard from the backcourt. That's not a very deep front court. That's not obviously they were 27th in the league in rebounding this year. So obviously they need help there in the rebounding category and in the blocks category and in the big defensive presence.
Yeah. Nurkic is more the European center that plays face to the basket.
Yeah.
Not a shot blocker necessarily. But this may be my favorite fit in your article. I would love to see him play with Dame Lillard. I think he'd be great playing and helping Dame, helping him get the ball in the right spots. Yeah, because Dame would know exactly where to get Walker the ball.
100%.
And he helps with block shots. He helps with rebounds. He helps on defense. I think that's a great fit for him.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. So we'll move on to the next one. The next one is my favorite fit, of course, because it's my team. It's my NBA team, the Charlotte Hornets. Look, the Hornets have not, and this is painful for me to say on live. The Hornets have not won a playoff series since 2002 and are coming off back-to-back years where they have gotten absolutely blown out and destroyed in the new play-in tournament. So outside of the struggles, not just this past year for Charlotte, but in the past almost 2 decades, they are a very, very good, young, guard-heavy team. And when I say guard-heavy, I do kind of want to throw Miles Bridges in that when I say guard-heavy as well, because when I'm talking about Kessler, I'm talking about that's the kind of talking about.
Yeah.
But when you talk about guys like LaMelo Ball, I talk about fun to be fun to play with as a big man. I would love to play with LaMelo Ball if I was a big man. Terry
Some of
Rozier
his
is another one of
alley-oops.
those guys.
Yeah.
Miles Bridges, PJ Washington. They've got guys to get Walker Kessler the ball. The lack of the big presence, the only big man contracted this year for the Charlotte Hornets is Mason Plumlee. That's exactly why.
When
we
was
were
the
the 10th
last time
seed and got
Charlotte
blown out
had a
of the playoff.
decent? When was the last time Charlotte had a decent big man? What's the kid from North Carolina?
No, it was Al Jefferson, big Al Jefferson, and back in
they need a big
2013.
They need a big
Exactly.
Badly. They've needed a big for a while.
Yeah.
Because every time they get in the playoffs and they run up against a team that has a big, they don't have any way. Plumlee's not going to guard
Bam Adebayo,
or Joel Embiid or any of these dudes.
Yeah.
I think at least Walker provides some shot blocking and some. He's going to struggle against guys that are MVP of the year. Joel Embiid is an MVP guy, so that's a bad example. But they don't have a big.
Yeah,
Charlotte does not have a big and hasn't had a quality big in a while.
Yeah,
and I don't consider Plumlee a quality big.
I don't either. I'm a Charlotte Hornets fan, and I do not either. But we will move on from that because that pained me a little bit. So the next team that I listed, this is the last team. This is the final team that I listed. And then we'll talk about what our favorites were. The Chicago Bulls, I think. Obviously, the Hornets are my favorite fit. Obviously, I think that I said the Trailblazers are the best fit, especially if Damian Lillard is there. This, I think, is the most likely. I could really see Walker. I just can vision Walker Kessler. I can vision both him at the Bulls and at the Bucks. I can see perfectly. Look, the Chicago Bulls are on their best run this year since 2014, as I noted in the article. They're the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They did lose to the Bucks in the playoffs, if I'm correct. The only center they have on the roster that gets minutes is the big man who formerly played for the Magic, another European center, Nikola Vucevic. And again, just like you said with Yusuf Nurkic, he's more of a face-up. I'm going to pop out and pass the ball. He's not a great rebounder. They were 28th in rebounding this year. Obviously, it shows that Vucevic isn't that dominant rebounder, and I'm not saying that Kessler will be at the next level either. But Vucevic can't be that only guy out there, and it showed in rebounding, and that really hurt them in their series against Milwaukee this year in the playoffs. And they were also 26th in the league in blocks. And those two stats, they're two of the worst in the league, and those are the two that Walker Kessler makes an immediate impact on your team. Look, I think he can make an impact on your team offensively, but I don't think that's going to be right now. I don't think that's going to be next year.
He's a defensive
That's a development thing. But immediately he can make an impact on blocks and rebounds. So, look.
I like the fit with the Bulls. I like that. I think that the kid that they've got now is a good player. He probably would fit better at a 4 than a 5 because he's a good shooter. He's a really good outside shooter. But to pair him with the guard, what's his name that moved from San Antonio there?
From San Antonio,
their best player, the Bulls right now.
He did not come from Zach LaVine. He did not come from San Antonio.
No, I'm not thinking about Zach LaVine. I'm thinking about the
DeMar
DeRozan. DeRozan, yes. Yeah. To pair him with DeRozan and LaVine and the other Ball brother who was hurt, and probably could they have beat the Bucks in that series? I doubt it, but they probably win another game in that series if Ball plays.
Yeah,
Ball can get you the ball where you need it to be. But they can also DeRozan's a great defender. I think that he would be a great fit in Chicago as a guy who used to root for Michael Jordan and watch the Bulls on WGN and became a Bulls fan when Jordan went there. I'd love to see him in Chicago.
Yeah,
because I've become a
I
Bulls
agree.
fan.
I think that's most likely.
Yeah.
Obviously, my favorite is Charlotte, but just like I said, I think Portland and Miami are really good fits. But I could just see him in a Bucks or a Bulls uniform.
Yeah, I agree.
It just makes sense.
I agree.
But obviously, like I noted at the end of the article, the finish of the NBA playoffs and the NBA draft lottery, which is on May 17th, will tell us a lot more about where Walker and Jabari will end up in this year's draft. The possibility of Auburn having 2 first-round draft picks for the first time ever.
The Bruce Pearl effect.
Exactly right. The Bruce Pearl effect, the huge impact that he has made is spectacular.
It's unbelievable. Thank you, Bruce.
No kidding. Thank you, Bruce. No kidding. All right, but we'll get out of here. Next week, we are starting a series where I assume it will be like 13 weeks. Every week, we'll spend at least half of the show talking about one specific individual player on this upcoming team and what they bring and what they do. I'm also going to write an article every single week on auburndaily.com about that player. It won't be anything long or anything drawn out. It'll be about that player, and then we'll go through that article on this show on Fridays. But next week we'll go by academic class. So obviously the oldest guy on the team, Papa Zepp. We'll talk about Zeb Jasper coming back for his super senior season.
Yeah.
Next year. That's like getting a 5-star. I
love Zeb Jasper.
Love Zeb.
He's
amazing to not only the basketball team but Auburn University in general. Such a good Auburn man.
Leader.
But yeah, we'll keep you all updated on Twitter. Interact with us on Twitter. Both of our Twitter handles are right beside the screen, on the screen right there.
It's hard.
But we will go.
What about your other articles?
That's right.
You got another article.
I was about ready to discuss that. I'm currently in the middle of writing predicting a entire mock draft just for me for the NBA before the draft lottery comes out. So I won't know. This will be based on the odds of the picks. But I'm gonna do a little sketch and I'm gonna do all 30 picks in the first round. Kind of talk a little bit about each guy. Expect that hopefully like beginning of next week. Maybe even this weekend. But and then expect Zep later next week before the show, and then we'll go from there. Super excited. You can check all this stuff out at auburndaily.com. or all the socials on Twitter, @SI_Auburn. You can check us both out on Twitter right here at Gray Olderberger, at War Eagle Hoops. And until next Friday, War Eagle.
War Eagle.